Nothing on Orchard 1. So let's switch to Orchard Core and pull everything. So last week we shipped RC1, and either nobody's using it or everything went pretty well. There were some bugs and migrations, so migration steps, so I should be using it, which is good. The main thing we've heard is that it's faster. I think everyone has noticed that it's faster just by upgrading to RC1, because it's upgrading to Netcore 3.0. But it's visibly faster, which is usually a good thing. If you can detect, like feel it's faster, it's faster. 7 days ago. So what did we do? Is just a branch, and if I look at the dev branch, which is on the left, we have missing style for BagPart. Okay, it's missing a CSS. Helper liquid tags documentation to explain how to use the helper and block liquid tags that will map to tag helper. Typo, then optimize the reduce amount of state machine from Marco to optimize the perf. Same thing, optimizing perf by pre-calculating ShapeDescriptor results. Perf. I didn't measure visible improvements in RPS, but we can measure, we can see some improvements in allocations, which was the goal of these changes. An indirect RPS, but we have another bottleneck apparently than that. So if you go on aka.ms/aspnet/benchmarks, you can go on the page called custom, and there is a scenario that is called Orchard blog, which is the home page of the blog recipe. And here you see the RPS was pretty stable. The difference between here and there is that we got new machines and that are smaller. Well, we upgraded to CentOS, which makes it slow because of a kernel patch. The main difference also is that from there to there is a startup time increased, and I assume it's because we started to load the localization files on startup that we ship by default. So that's the default experience. We lost half a second of startup time. Still pretty good. 3.5 seconds from .NET Run to request served. Okay, because the green is the startup when the server is ready, and the first request initialization is the gray part. But if we look at allocations, you see it went down, and I assume you see this drop is because of Marco's change. And yeah, and this is also what I measured when I did some local measurements. So that's a good change. Good thing. Just mentioning that. And every time we do some changes, we'll see the impact on the blog recipe, at least. Allow to exclude update localization files and publishing. Yeah, this is just so that these, this attribute, this property in build properties is supported now. So this is a standard MS Build property. If you want to exclude things from the publish step, you can redefine this value, and this will be taken into account. Prevent all localization files from being copied on each build. Yep, so now it's just not copying the files if they're already here. Fixing a regression content field index, because there are two migration files and it was registering the same migration file instead of the other. This is fixed. I assume it impacts everyone on RC. NoWarnOnRazorViewImportedTypeConflicts. fixing a warning. Fixed paging in OpenID by using a dynamic shape factory. And I think it's fixing the pager itself. I don't see what will be the issue here. It should be the same. So this code is the same, okay. This code is the same, so the main difference is actually here. Shape factory, this is the same, the dynamic one, and when you use the dynamic one, calling pager should do the same thing. I don't understand what's the difference. Is that here? Okay, interesting. I'd like to know what's broken. Do we have a commit message? No, it's not linked to an issue, so I don't know. Workflows create activity should be displayed as edit. Yeah, so at least what I see here is that we have a display text on the activity. It should use that instead of the automatically generated values. The dot value though is interesting because I think this is localized. If this is localized, I'm not sure we should have dot value. I'm afraid it will be double encoded. We have to be careful with that. Unless it's a string encoder, which I think it is, and in this case it's fine. Good. Update BagPart settings, default display type placeholder and hint to details. There was a null ref and the default. So the idea is that there is another commit later, I think. But when you create BagPart and you edit the settings and you select the type, you can choose what is the display type of the items of the BagPart on the front end by default. And the text box with this setting is predefined with summary, okay? And also when it's rendering it, it tells you, hey, you should have summary. If you remove the value, then what's the default value actually? It's a placeholder. No, actually it's empty. Okay, it's empty and it tells you by default it will summary, but it should actually be detailed. That's why it's fixing it. And there was a null ref at some point later on. That was the actual issue, but we fixed it somewhere else. That's weird. I don't see that here. But now the official default is detail. It should be detail, and it won't if you say detail. And if you don't say detail and you say something else, you're responsible for providing a widget dash summary fallback if you don't have the one for the content type that you're providing. That's the idea. But the widget should be detailed by default. And if you type summary, which we don't have, it will fail. That's why we said, okay, let's be explicit that it's detailed the default. Replace PageLoaderMatcherPolicy later, just to prevent a call to add MVC from your own module to update some options in the MVC options from re-registering this instance that will conflict with the one that we have to provide. So now this is registered later, such that even if you call MVC in your module, we will still use this implementation instead of the default MVC one. Organize widgets in row columns. So we merge this PR that provides a better editor experience, and I think we should try that today and see how it looks like. You require EndpointComparer to fix some, I think, Razor routing, endpoint routing. There were some routing issues that fixed with that. Try to fix edit link broken URL in read the docs. Okay, so read the docs, the edit URL was not working anymore, so it's fixed. Updating the dependencies of all the things, JavaScript dependencies, upgrading them, implementing log-free RunningShellTable. I was trying to repro, well, to see if the domain mapping was still working, because a user said it was not working, and I think Sebastian that said that, if I'm not mistaken. And it was working for me, but then I was debugging to see why it was not working or it will not work, and I saw we are using some logs where actually it's a structure that we're using some logs, because in this class we see we have add, remove, and also some match, which will read, and we don't want, so it was a dictionary and we wanted it to be thread safe, and in this case we mostly only do reads, we never write to it, we never add tenants to it, mostly, or maybe on startup or when there is a new tenant. So I made it using immutable collection. This way it will be allocating when we change the structure, but we can safely read and write at the same time, because they will be done in different structures at one time. We just copy the structure when we want to add something, and if someone was already reading that, well, it will be just reading something which is a little bit old, like from 1 millisecond before, which is fine. And this way there is no more at all in most requests when we try to find what to match the tenant from the URL or the domain. Just some small optimization. Fixing from Gentry, asynchronous read of request bodies mandatory. With the 3.0 version of ASP.NET Core, we can't do synchronous stream operations anymore by default unless we set a flag, but we don't want. So we need to call an async one, and in this case we still need to await it because Gint is not asynchronous. So it's not async commands here. Then we have that update. So I see 2 origin branches which have nothing on it. We might want to delete that. Update asset cache to check Azure Media Store is enabled. So just some warnings: if you don't have the correct settings, you will be warned that you don't have the correct settings for the Azure Media Storage, for the cache actually. Then fixing list admin node when no content type is set. Fixing an ref. I see Antoine that by upgrading tryOrchard.NET to RC1, and the exception he had was an ref. So here it's handling the ref, it's writing an error, but it's not failing the app completely. And when you call it incorrectly, then you will get a meaningful exception. Change create editor URL in Ajax call to use absolute URL instead of relative URL. So wrong URL here. Fixed for widgets. Allow sending email with a display name. I merged it. I thought it would be a simple change, but actually I preferred that we don't have to write that. So I asked Hisham to see if there wasn't a way to do that with the library we are using, which is MIMEKit, something like that, or MailKit, I don't remember, to handle the email addresses with lesser and greater than jars. more PRs, and then new all the PRs from Din. Look at that, it's just Din, 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 Din. WithPosition extension method on content part field definition builder, fixed namespace, and documentation on Azure Blob Storage. These ones are easy to review and merge. That's why they get quickly in. That's it for Orchard Core. Questions? Demos. So I will let Dean start, and then after I will show the host colon editor from Niraj. No. Yes. No. Was it from Niraj? Yes. Dean as a presenter. Here you go, Dean. You can share your screen. Because Dean has a PR called Sitemaps, like it's been there for a year, but he recreated it to be up to date with RC.
Yeah, quite old, so I'm still trying to remember what I was doing as well. Let me know when you can see the screen.
We can.
Excellent. Yeah, so this is a sitemap PR to kind of automatically generate sitemaps for your content items. So it started off kind of quite simple, and then we've added a little bit to it. I'll run you the idea is that you can have multiple sitemap sets.
Okay, and you have to explain what is a sitemap and what is a sitemap set and how it works. Most of us know, I'm sure, but not me. I forgot. I did some sitemap. So in my mind, there's a sitemap.xml, and I know that this file can also aggregate multiple files if we want. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's the basics of it. There's a couple of sitemaps here. So here's a very simple one, and you provide these to Google to tell it what pages you have on your website, and it will then go and index them, which can just improve your SEO rankings, really. I mean, Google will obviously index your site by opening the homepage and finding links that it can get to, but by directing Google at specific pages, you can just improve your rankings. So this is a very simple sitemap. It's got 2 blog posts in it. It's got the information about when they were last modified, the change frequency, which is a setting you can set to tell Google how often it should recheck that page, and a priority, which is a number you can use to kind of give pages on your site a higher priority. So we have that, and then we also have the concept of a sitemap index, which can contain links to other sitemaps. Some of the restrictions that Google, and both Google and Bing, placed on sitemaps is a limitation of 50,000 URLs per sitemap, and I think a maximum size of 50 megabytes. So if you exceed that size, Google won't actually pull the sitemap or stop pulling it. So if you have a lot of content items, you need to be able to split them into different sitemaps, which you do by creating an index, which tells it where else you can find them. People often also do indexes and split sitemaps when they're doing localization or localized sitemaps. So you might have one sitemap which has your English content, and another with the French or any of the other cultures that you're supporting. So at this point I haven't done localized sitemaps for this, but it's probably not a big stretch to implement it. So what I've done in terms of Orchard is introduce the concept of a sitemap set. The reason for having sets is so that you can actually create and work with multiple sitemaps that you would only provide, you would choose one to provide to Google, which you do generally from a robots text file, or you can also ping Google with your sitemap as well. But it's quite important to get it into the robots text so that when Google comes along, it's going to read that and say, oh, look, there's the sitemap, I'll go there.
So why create sitemap sets when there should only be one sitemap index? Or can we have multiple sitemap indexes?
So you can only have one sitemap index, and you can only have one sitemap that you're actually providing to Google. This was a way of being able to work with more complex sitemaps and develop them without sitemaps having to actually become content items where you could publish and unpublish them. My SEO guy at work is often tweaking his sitemaps, shall we say, and he was quite keen on the concept of being able to actually work on one that was completely independent and not actually published.
So this is like the collection I was mentioning earlier, the immutable collection. You are not changing the sitemap you are using, you are creating a new one, changing it, and when it's done, you swap them.
Exactly.
So I assume I'm not seeing that, but you should have a clone option. So you can, if you want to work on the main sitemap, you should be able to clone it, to be able to change it, and then, okay, let's swap it to make it the default one.
That makes sense. There isn't one of those buttons. There's a disable and a
later.
Moment.
Okay, improvement. V2.
So the simple sitemap is very simple. It's just got one single node on it, which is a content type node, and it produces an XML file. So if you relook at that, then we have, that should be called the entire site. So at the content that we want to show, one of the difficulties here, and we'll talk more about this, is deciding which content to exclude, because things like menus, for example, and menu items, although they are content items, shouldn't be in the sitemap. But if we grabbed a few pages, and then we have a look at the actual sitemap, over here, must not be that one, must be this one. Then we have the blog post and the blog. So on a simple site, you would probably only have one sitemap, and this is all you need. If it wants to get a little bit more complicated, then we create an index, and then we can drag content into that index, or content types into that index. So the index file itself, I have it. Will then list, and it's a different XML definition for a sitemap index. So we'll then list the other sitemaps that exist on your site. And we might have one in here for other languages as well, the other locales. So then when Google comes along and looks at your site, it will hit this first, because this is the only file that you refer to in your robots text. The other files don't get a reference. They get referenced from here. So in terms of nodes at the moment, we've got the two. It's the index. Sorry, that's the index, and the content type node. I think probably what we need as well for this is a localized content node, so that you can say, I want all content for this locale to go into this sitemap.
So I don't understand the object model that you created here, because at first we saw sitemap, what did you call it? Sitemap sets. Sitemap set. So here I assume I see a sitemap set. Okay, here, if you, okay, so open complex sitemap. So this is a sitemap set. And a set is a concept that you created because it doesn't map to an index or to a sitemap. Here, a sitemap set has a sitemap index, which then is made of sitemaps. And each sitemap, in this case, when you click edit on one node, which is either an index or, then you edit the properties of this sitemap. This I understand. Okay, I have a sitemap and I can select what I want in there. And the way you select the things is you pick the content types and you let it feed it to the sitemap itself. Okay. So why create the notion of set if actually, okay, I see. If what you call set, I see. The wording is weird to me, because it's just, in a set you can have only one sitemap index, right? If you have a sitemap index. Right. Or you could have it's either a sitemap or a sitemap index made of other sitemaps. I would assume in a sitemap.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So you can have a sitemap index with other sitemaps in it.
Okay, and if you try to add a new sitemap index in this set, should it work? Maybe it will work, but does it mean anything?
It doesn't really, no.
Okay.
And it does work.
But yeah, so that's why I was saying it works, but it doesn't mean anything, because that's not how sitemaps work. Okay.
Yeah.
So then,
I mean, at the moment, there's a little bit of understanding of how a sitemap index needs to be built in order to use this, because there is not a lot of error checking.
Yeah, that's okay. That's why I was asking if it was checking that or not. And so then you said the sets are useful so you can work on a sitemap or its index while you.
Yeah.
How do you define which one is served? Just by editing the file name here?
You actually define what's served in your robots text file. So there is no robots text module at the moment. That might come later. I do have a little something I was working on some time ago. But at the moment, if you go to, where's a site with a robots text file?
Oh, so the robots file tells you where to take the sitemap from. Okay. Optionally, because I assume if you don't have a robots.txt, Google will still find your sitemap, right? With a convention.
Yeah, optionally. I mean, you can also submit them to Google directly.
Okay.
Through Search Console.
And when you say submit them, do you mean I can submit many, or I should submit one file?
Either. You should submit one file.
Okay.
Or one URL.
Yeah. I haven't done that in years, so I don't remember exactly, but I have some little knowledge. That's why I was asking the questions. Then, and that's why I told you we need to Skype, because I want to understand what you're doing and why you are doing it, and if there will be a better way to do that, if you're open to better ways for external opinions. What I would have liked to see is, instead of saying sets, well, let's just make sitemaps, okay? Sorry, well, sitemaps, and not calling the sets, and you can give them a name like simple sitemap and complex sitemap, and I would say the nodes you created, the extensibility point, I would have thought that they would be to build a sitemap, meaning in terms of sitemap, not talking about index. I want to create a sitemap called French blog posts. Okay, and then in this sitemap, I will have said I will add a node that will get content types of blog posts for culture French. And then I could also say, oh, and by the way, I also want pages for culture French. And I want articles for all cultures. I don't know. And then you build what is inside the sitemap, because this is the unit of links. This is where you put the links. And what you want to do is to be able to decide what kind of links I want to put in this file. And you could also say, I want a custom link, one link. This is another sitemap node. And this way you build a sitemap, okay, from extensible sources. The same way we build a deployment plan. When we create a deployment plan, it's a set of steps which can come from anything. Here, a sitemap can be fed from anything. This is exactly in terms of, and that's why the UI, I assume, and you know that because you worked on that, is the same. Or like Matthias worked on the admin menu. This is the same kind of provider, so this is super nice. But yeah, I will just expose map concept directly. Yeah, you see. So I will expose the sitemap concept so I can build sitemaps. And then, well, let's build a sitemap index. And then when you create a sitemap index with a name, you can give it a file name. And then you can also check which sitemaps should be in this index. And then it will just be a list of links to a sitemap, which is also something which is edited independently. And if tomorrow I want to work on a different sitemap just to test things, a different sitemap index, I create a new sitemap index with a different name, and then I can check some sitemaps, even one that I'm working on, and then I can see the result. And the day I want it to be the default one, I just change its name to be the one I want, or I change my robots to point to this one. So that's why I think it would be easier to just repeat a list of sitemap indexes and a list of sitemaps. Sitemap indexes are just a list of checkbox of sitemaps, and when you edit a sitemap, you can add sitemap sources to provide links to it. That would be so much simpler, I think, for the UI, for the concepts, and you still have the flexibility of creating as many as you want. And you still have the flexibility to say, I want a sitemap with only the French content, one with only the English content, if you want. It's just about the sitemap sources, the nodes that you want to provide. That's how I would have done that, I think. That's why I wanted to talk to you to think about it.
So you would have the sitemap index, and then from there you would pick sources that were going into it.
Well, no. You will create sitemaps, and then from there you pick that feed the sitemap, okay? And in a parallel step, you create a sitemap index, if you want, that will select the sitemaps that you have created. This way, you create sitemaps, and you can use them directly from Google, or you can create a sitemap index, and you select what sitemaps are in this index. The same way you will build manually a sitemap index and a sitemap if you had a text editor and you didn't have a CMS. The only thing that is dynamic is every module can provide sitemap sources that will provide URLs and last modified and things like this. And for each source, you can provide the metadata, like I don't remember what did you have, the priority, I don't remember, things like this. So yeah, frequency and priority. Okay, so that's what I would think. And then all the links from blog post will have the same change frequency and priority. And if you want them to have different, then you can add another kind of source, which is for a single content item, or for another set of content items for this blog post. But yeah, a sitemap source instance with the change frequency and priority defined in it. And location and last modified will be provided by the execution of the source. Yeah.
One of the reasons I'd gone down the node route and the concept of different nodes was so that it would be possible to put in an images or to write an images sitemap as well.
Yeah.
Because the XML changes for that, so it needs to be in a different file again. Not that that wouldn't work, it's just a source. It's just a different source.
Yep, what I explained matches also. You create a sitemap, and the only source is the media sitemap source that will return all the media. And media source can be configured to filter which media you want, by folder, by whatever, like the export steps.
Yeah.
So yeah. So my only confusion with your UI is that I go in a set, and the set can contain the indices and sitemaps, and I can rearrange them, but at the same time, it can only have one index. Doesn't make sense to have two. And an index can only have sitemaps. So you already know the structure of what it should have, but yet you provide a way of editing the structure. But you should not, because it doesn't support it. It doesn't make sense. That's why I'm saying then let's create sitemap indexes. And when you edit a sitemap index, you just add sitemaps to it. And even better if you can edit sitemaps out of the indexes, because this way you could create two indexes that use the same sitemap for testing reasons, for reusing reasons. And I think that would be simpler to manage.
Yeah, no, I see.
But yes, you still need the dynamicity of the.
We can't hear you.
Now you should be able. I unplugged my USB because I saw you could not hear me. We lost the, I assume that's what triggered everything. Something happened and then we lost all the shared content, but it's still here. We are still recording, and I assume you can hear me. Nobody can confirm that, but okay. Okay, all good. And Greg can see something. I don't know what Greg can see, but we can see his screen is showing that he's seeing something. It's interesting. Okay, good. I will share my screen just to have something to show. Does anyone have questions for Dean or comments to do about the sitemaps? Suggestions based on your experience, how we should do sitemaps and what concerns we didn't talk about. I think one other question I had is about storage. How is a sitemap served? Is it something that is created on the fly and cached using a middleware, or is it a static file that is created somewhere and that is served by the static file provider? I can see issues with both of them.
At the moment, if you can hear me again.
Yes, we can.
At the moment, it's created on the fly.
Okay. And every time it's requested, or do you just cache it?
I haven't cached it, kind of based on the likelihood that it's not going to get hit that often.
Okay.
But it would be very easy to do.
So my suggestion would be to create it on the fly like you did, because you can't save it as sitemapindex.xml. It's not possible because it won't work in a cloud environment, because you might not be able to write into the www root, or you might have to write your own static file provider. And so for this reason, so you have to build it on the fly. But for caching, I will not cache it in memory, because if it's big, you will just block some memory all the time just to serve it. It cannot be that big at the same time, so that's fine. But I think the best option is to, and you know how it works because you did it for the Azure storage, is to have a middleware that will cache it on the file system, okay, on every node of the cloud, of your farm, sorry, and on demand. So you just say, if it hasn't changed, because the sources haven't changed, or whatever reason, or sorry, or you could just cache it for an amount of days, or whatever, with some cache invalidation mechanism that every source can provide. And you just cache it on the file, and then you serve the file as a static file provider, like you are doing for the Azure caching. That would be a way to do that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we'd have to clear it kind of on publish at every.
Exactly. That's why maybe each source should be able to provide a token, so that what you have in memory is just the change tokens from every source of the sitemap, and you just ask them, hey, have you changed? Some ask you, have you changed? And if they say yes, then you flush the file and you recreate the sitemap. Otherwise, you say, no, let's go on. So yeah. So yeah, that's the idea. So if you get to that point, I will show you some pieces of code where we do that. Just look for change token, and we have one, for instance, in site settings, or for the caching. Actually, it's funny because we have exactly that for the dynamic cache module, and each source can provide a change token, and then yeah, that should be easy to do. And you can even use the memory cache to store like a boolean, like an object, nothing, that will get all the change tokens from the sources, because the memory cache will tell you if one of the tokens has changed, it will give you a new value, which could be the URL of the file, maybe the internal URL of the file, or something like that. Well, you will see when times arise. Also, yeah, good, awesome, thank you. If you want to talk more about the sitemap index versus sitemap design I have in mind, we can talk later on Skype. But it should be even simpler than one you did, so you will just reuse what you did in terms of UI, but I think it will be simpler.
Yeah, the UI is not hard to change. That was really just the admin menus recreated. So I think probably the sources support what you're talking about, so that will be fine.
Yep.
And good, makes it simpler.
And we haven't heard anything from anyone else. Oh, look at that. Sorry, Sebastian commented. Will the sitemap be separate for each tenant? Yes, and it has to, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think there would be a reason why it should be not. It might be. So, for instance, I had the case with weblogs.asp.net, which are lots of tenants, but they still want to have an aggregated RSS feed for all the tenants. So we made a module that would create an RSS feed based on all the tenants. So you might want maybe at some point, if you have like /foo/bar/baz, all the tenants you want, but you might want a sitemap for the main default tenant that will actually aggregate all the sub-sitemap. But that will be a different module that will be called sitemap aggregator, that will be able to list all the tenants that we have, and you will point the tenants that you want to aggregate, and it will by itself talk to each sitemap and then create an aggregate index of all the sub indexes or sitemaps internally. So that will still be a different module, but I could see the usage of that, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using tenants which are not hosted on their own IP address and are subtenants of the site, then an aggregator can work. If they're different URLs, then Google will just ignore it.
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, it's totally possible.
Any comment about the design suggestions I gave to Dean? If somebody disagrees or agrees or thinks I missed something, I like when people have opinions, even if they are different than mine. I sometimes change my mind, and I feel better because it means I understand that's something I didn't understand before. Okay. Thank you, Dean. It's awesome. And yes, I think you made a PR at some point for robots.txt also. Is that you or someone else? Or maybe there is a
no, but I might have mentioned it when I started the Sitemaps one, because it kind of leads on. I think we really need to do rewrite before we do robots though, because it all needs to feed into that.
Okay. And the robots.txt module should be super simple. I can see just let's provide a text area and let people write stuff in that, and this is what we will serve, and with a local cache like you did for Azure Media Cache, and done. Optionally, we could say, okay, let's use Liquid so we can even have dynamic robots, and then with a cache, a lifetime, so we can regenerate every 1 hour because the Liquid needs to be reevaluated. I don't know, but that would be the advanced robots.txt. I don't know if we could, or should it be like node-based, like we can add sources and they can provide different things to the robots. I don't know if that makes sense. That might. I don't know what kind of robots.txt file contain, or if we just care about having a text area, and that will work.
Yeah, I mean, I have a module that I run on my site, which is just a text area, which works very well. But the interesting bit comes when you're doing rewrite stuff. And when you're wanting to put rewrites in, and whether you want to put them in automatically or not, but absolutely for the future.
Okay, so Sebastian is sharing a link that there is already a module for that, apparently, from the company from Peter Keating, I assume, ETCH, provides SEO. Yeah, there are many things already there. Robots, okay, so maybe we should look at it. Just use it. Awesome. Meta tags, rewrite. Meta tags in what context? For content items? For all the content items? Because Seth Cleaver has a meta tags module already. Redirect content items that redirect right here. Okay. Meta tags part. Okay, interesting. I've seen this site. Yeah, they have lots of modules for Orchard, and look at that. Blogs, fields, SEO, templates, search. Sometimes just for their own site and they can't be reused, but they even have Umbraco modules. We should take them. Yep. Okay. Good. I will try to show some, so you can see my screen. I will go there. And I can do that. Sorry. And I will run it. And you see I was on the page reverse proxy because yes, we have the reverse proxy module that Dean made that allows to forward the X-forwarded header when you are using a proxy, so that the generate are from before the proxy proxied your URL. So that's a blog, and if I go to admin, and I create a new page, which is supposed to be based on flows. Control F5 to be sure I have the latest thing. I will call it flow page, and I will add a widget like a paragraph. And yesterday I tried that on tryOrchardProject.net, and it was not working, but I found also some bugs. We'll see if the bugs are fixed. So this is different UI from last week, because last week we had radio buttons here, and now they are just dropped down. Oh, and remove the radio button, that's awesome. Okay, let's try that. I want some lorem ipsum. Sometimes I'm thinking I should add an extension to write lorem ipsum. Here paste, or I assume I need to do paste as plain text, and I will add another paragraph that will paste as plain text. And the idea is that if I just change that to 50%, it changes to 50%. And if I also say that one at 50%, then boom. Wow, that works actually. That works. And if I want to, okay, I will put it to 33%. Okay, and this one too. And I want to inject one in the middle. So inject, insert a paragraph. This one by default is at 100%. Okay, I will put it to 33, and it works. Wow. And now I will undock that and call preview, which I will dock on the right, and this one on the left. You see, this is the comment. If you follow what I said on the PR, this is something I mentioned. When this zone becomes small, these elements should have a minimal breakpoint that it should just go back to 100% in this case. In this editor, not here. Here it's correctly 33%, but here it should just use the full width. So if I see, it should have used the full width. So if I go down here, at some, you see, it does it now. This is exactly what I would expect, but I would expect it earlier, because if I have two elements, it's unusable in this case. Even when I do that, it's unusable. So I need to go to, it's very slight, but at that point, yeah, it's good now. I have the full width. Interesting. The same way like these ones, I assume this is the same breakpoint. They will start going on the full width because they are too small to be colonized. It depends on each editor, but in this case, you see we have margin here, margin inside, and then margin there. So this is very small to edit. Okay, that works. And if I take this one, so I will put this one in bold, take it. Oh, I need to click on the arrows. So it did the change, I think, that Dean asked for. And I drop, and it works. It's beautiful. And it also supports containers. I think we saw that. So if I had a widget which is a container, the container is just a container of other widgets, and we can define other sizes like 50%, so you can create columns and everything. It's just a container. So I should be able to take that and put it inside the container. And in this case, I will go up big. Oh, this didn't follow. And we can see I have the 33, and then in a container which is 100%, a 33. Okay. But same issue here. Small. So it will just be big if it will be bigger if I make it smaller. It's like super intuitive. with even more margins because we have another container here. But that works. I mean, that's awesome. So if I say 50% and then I say left, see, everything works. It's beautiful. And the drop downs are much better also than before because there were some radio buttons. This is really nice. I love it. Niraj, good job. So what did I miss here? Meet the ipsum, thank you. I just Googled. Okay. And I mentioned it also. We have a new tryOrchard project.net. So Antoine updated tryOrchard project.net with the RC version. So if we create one already, so if you create a new one, you are using the RC version. So I will totally use it to show the localization improvements because it's shipped by default. You just go and add a new supported culture and then you use Arabic and then you get the right to left automatically. That's awesome. It's great improvements. So if you want to do demos, that's the best thing to do. It's also super fast. Well, I think it's hosted close to my location. It's West US, so that's why maybe. But you see, like yesterday it was 33 milliseconds to get the full site, and then same thing when the site is running, it's super fast. So super nice demo. And the machine is not even big. Questions? Okay, great demos. Great content. Lots of PRs are accumulating, but I think we are doing good. We merge what we can merge quickly. We have big features to take into account. Thinking about Seth meta tags, soon the sitemaps. If you want me to go faster on some things, just ping me, just bother me, ask me, hey, do that, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I will do that. PRs to be merged, comments, you are blocked on something, you need help, just Skype us, or Gitter also works. Thanks everyone, I'll see you on Thursday for the triage. Bye bye.